Can you be arrested for DWI in Texas when you haven't been drinking? Hi, I'm Jeff Hampton with the Hampton Law Firm. I want to thank you for joining us today on our YouTube channel. Today, I want to talk about exactly that. Is it possible to be arrested for DWI when you haven't had a single drink? By the way, if you wait around to the end of this video, I'll also give you a free ebook, The Ultimate Guide to DWI Defense in Texas. All right? Now, so that's the question. What if you had zero to drink? What if you have absolutely nothing to drink, a police officer pulls you over, can he still arrest you for driving while intoxicated? Well, yes, and we're going to talk about drug DWI today. Drug DWI. Now, many people are surprised to learn that any medication, including over-the-counter medication, can, even if it's legally prescribed, we don't have to be talking about hardcore illegal drugs here, that if they cause impairment, if they cause you in any way to become legally intoxicated, and we'll define that here in just a minute, it can result in the same type of arrest and conviction as an alcohol-related DWI case. So here's the important thing. If you are taking, and I'm going to talk mainly about prescription medication because that's where we find a lot of this taking place. But if you are taking prescription medication and operating a motor vehicle, there are two primary issues you need to be aware of when you are driving. Number one, you should keep proof of your prescription of the medication that you have with you at all times. Because I've seen people actually have their medication, but they keep it in a separate container or in their pocket. The police end up investigating for a DWI, and they end up throwing a drug charge on them as well because they don't have proof of the prescription. Okay, so that's number one. Keep your proof of prescription with you. Number two, you taking your ingestion of the prescription drugs must not affect you sufficiently to cause you to meet the definition of intoxication under Texas DWI law. Now, before I jump into this, if you or a loved one are facing a drug DWI case, I have to tell you this. You must immediately, after your drug DWI arrest, you have 15 days after the date of your arrest to request a license hearing. If you do not request a license hearing, which is called an administrative license revocation hearing, if you do not make that request within 15 days, your license will automatically be suspended 40 days after the date of your arrest. You say, well, why? Why should I even have to go through this? I wasn't even drinking. Doesn't matter. As we've already said, the same rules for alcohol DWI apply to drug DWI. There is no distinction. So circle that 15th day on your calendar. Make sure you hire an attorney before that deadline. Okay. Now, how does Texas law define intoxication? If you are intoxicated, according to Texas law, you must either, number one, three ways, have a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08 or higher at the time of driving, which doesn't apply here because you weren't drinking, right? There's no allegations of alcohol. Or number two, you must no longer have the normal use of your mental faculties due to the introduction of drugs or a dangerous drug into your body, or no longer have the normal use of your physical faculties. So you have to have either lost your mental faculties or your physical faculties because of the drugs that you were using. Now, here's the thing. We don't have the .08 language to concern ourselves with. So the problem is the police officers end up relying very heavily on two things. On drug DWI cases, they want field sobriety tests from you, and they want they want a blood test. Those are the two main things that they want from you, okay? Now let's talk about those for a second. Now, field sobriety tests we'll get into, but here's some other things they're looking at before they get you up to the field sobriety test section. Let's say they pull you over hypothetically, they get you out of the car. They're gonna be looking, bloodshot, watery eyes, slurred speech. Do they appear to be nervous? Are they unsteady on their feet? Do they lack balance? Do they appear to be confused? Here's what's unfair. The DWI officer is going to interpret all of that, even if it's just because you're nervous. What if it has nothing to do with being intoxicated or prescription medication at all? They are going to interpret that as signs of intoxication, and they're keeping track of every bit of that, okay? So additionally, one of the things that they're going to do is try to get you to persuade you to go ahead and give a blood sample, or they'll go get a blood search warrant in order to be able to take your blood. And so what if you were taking the normal prescription medication that you take every day? Maybe you've been taking them for years and they were prescribed by your doctor. Will the presence of those drugs in your system automatically make you guilty of drug DWI in Texas? Not necessarily. You see, in order to be convicted, particularly for a prescription drug DWI case, the prosecutor will have to call a toxicologist as an expert witness to testify that those drug levels found in that blood sample were more than therapeutic levels commonly associated with that drug, okay? And so even now that we've even had some instances where that drug level on the toxicology report was actually higher than normal therapeutic levels. However, the doctor who prescribed that medication said that they've been taking it for years at those levels. And when pressed under cross-examination, many toxicologists will admit that there can be other factors to consider determining if someone's intoxicated. For example, what if you've been taking that same medication for 10 years and you've begun to build up a resistance to that drug over the years? What if your behavior on the roadside was more consistent with someone that was not intoxicated and all they're relying upon is that blood sample? All of these issues must be thoroughly researched and investigated and really looked into by your defense attorney, your DWI attorney, okay? So what's the difference between a drug and a drug DWI and an alcohol-related DWI? Very little, okay? The biggest difference is sometimes they're a lot harder to prove for the prosecutor, okay? Because it's not as easy as a .08. There is no specific number that they come back with. And so one of the things that police officers used to rely upon more frequently was what they called drug recognition experts, where there were police officers that have taken specific training that they are able to become almost an expert at being able to identify intoxication related to certain drugs. And I'm going to give you some real examples of this. Central nervous system depressant drugs that they're looking for, like, of course, alcohol is one of those, but barbiturates, anxiety and depression medication, such as maybe Valium, Xanax, maybe you can just name it. All these different types of prescription medications that you can receive can actually cause intoxication as well. There are also some stimulants that sometimes can cause intoxication, depending upon how the facts lay out on it. There are also all of your common illegal drugs, inhalants, certain types of other types of drugs out there. Now, I beg to differ on whether or not certain marijuana or cannabis-related drugs will fit the definition of being intoxicated, and there is some research out there to establish that can be very objectionable as to whether or not that's true. But it really has to come back to analyzing the particular drug that is tied to that blood sample. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Some people say, what if I did terrible on the field sobriety test? Does that mean I'm just done? I have no chance? There's no way I can defend my case? No, not necessarily at all. Now, I'm not going to go over these in detail. I have a series of other videos that are all about DWI. In fact, I have the ultimate guide to DWI defense that I did as a video series that you can go back and look on my video, on more of my YouTube videos. But I do want to say this. There's 3 types of field sobriety tests. One is the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, which is an eye test. The other 2 are physical tests, the walk and turn tests and the one-leg stand test. Now, here's my point. 2 out of those 3 tests are physical tests that you can fail them for many reasons. And one example is, what if you're absolutely terrified on the side of the road, people are driving by, you're scared, you know this officer's staring you down, trying to take you to jail. Is it possible you'll step off the line when doing the walk and turn test? Of course. Is it because you're intoxicated? Not necessarily. And what about the one-leg stand? Can you hold your leg up with hands down by your side and keep it out, staring down at it for 30 seconds and not put your foot down when you're terrified? Many people that are just cold sober just would still fail that test. So there's many reasons why someone may not do well, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's because of intoxication. So one of the questions I get all the time, I have parents calling about their teenage kids, or maybe even their kids that are in their 20s, and they call it, my kids are on Adderall. They're taking Adderall. Can they get in trouble? Can they get arrested for driving on Adderall? Well, here's the thing. Not every behavior that you see that's associated with a drug is based on intoxication. What if the officer is not familiar with the basic chemistry of the drug or how it interacts with the body? In one instance, a DWI officer was claiming that signs of lethargy and grogginess was associated with the drug of Adderall. But then on cross-examination, the officer was surprised to learn that Adderall is actually a stimulant, and many of the attributes the officer claimed were associated with the drug did not match up with the drugs found in the blood test. So it's never as simple as there's a drug and you're convicted. There's always something there that a good DWI attorney can look into to determine if there's reasonable doubt. Okay, so how is it measured? We've identified this already through a blood test. So what are some of the ways to defend a drug DWI case in Texas? Well, one of them is the first thing your attorney should look at, and I'm going to go through this very quickly. Number one is an illegal traffic stop. Did that officer have a reason to pull you over? If he pulled you over and it was based on a hunch, he did not observe a traffic violation, if he did not articulate that clearly either on the video or in the police report, an illegal traffic stop results in an illegal DWI. And if you have an illegal traffic stop, your attorney can file what's called a motion to suppress, and your drug DWI case may be eligible to be thrown out. All right. Now, what if the blood draw or the breath test, and in this case, we'd be talking about a blood draw for a drug DWI case, but what if the blood draw was taken improperly? What if the person taking the drug was not a qualified technician as required under the law? What if the person that took the blood then did not establish proper chain of custody? What if the actual vials were not properly sealed and there was spoilage? Please understand, I don't want to get into too much on this, but we can talk about this if you decide that you want to give our office a call. But one of the byproducts of spoilage, if a vial is not properly sealed, is alcohol. It creates alcohol, which can then raise the level that's tested to an artificially high level, okay? So all of these are things that must be looked at thoroughly. Finally, what if it wasn't tested properly? What if the toxicologist didn't interpret it properly? There's so many steps along the way that your attorney can challenge a blood result related to a drug DWI case. Now, maybe you, a friend or a loved one, is facing a drug or prescription drug related DWI case in Texas. If you are facing a case in the Dallas-Fort Worth, North Texas area, I want to offer you a free case analysis and consultation. Don't hesitate to contact the Hampton law firm. In fact, there's a number right above me here that you've seen the entire time through this video. I encourage you to call that number, schedule a time, and I'll be happy to go over with you in detail the specifics of your case and see if we can be some assistance to you. Now, I promised you a free ebook, The Ultimate Guide to Your DWI Defense. All you have to do is go down into the description section of this YouTube video, click on the link. We'll be happy to send it to you. And I hope you found this helpful for you today. All right. If so, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that notifications button, like our video, and we'll send you more great content just like this in the future. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.